David Letterman risked everything to ask this one question. And within seconds of asking it, Donald Trump went from confident and controlled to visibly angry and defensive. What started as a seemingly lighthearted late-night interview quickly became one of the most intense confrontations in television history. Trump thought he could dominate the conversation like he always did, controlling the pace, deflecting uncomfortable questions, turning everything back on the interviewer. But David Letterman, a man who had spent 4 decades mastering the art of the interview, had other plans that he came prepared with questions Trump didn't want to answer. He pushed back when Trump tried to deflect, and he refused to let Trump control the narrative. It'd be why the end of the interview. Trump's trademark confidence had cracked. The audience sat in stunned silence, and millions watching at home witnessed something rare. Donald Trump losing control. This is the complete story of that unforgettable night. Before we get into exactly what Letterman asked that made Trump so defensive, if you're following this series of epic political confrontations, subscribe right now that we're uploading daily breakdowns of the most explosive moments in politics and media that you won't see fully covered anywhere else. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's dive into the full story. David Letterman leaned back slightly in his chair, wearing that familiar, effortless smile that had made millions of viewers feel like he was talking directly to them for decades. Across from him sat President Donald Trump, a man whose presence could fill any room even before he spoke a single word. The energy was different tonight. This wasn't an actor promoting their latest movie. This wasn't a comedian ready with rehearsed jokes and funny anecdotes. This was the President of the United States, a man who had returned to the White House after years away, whose entire life had been under constant public scrutiny. Every word carried weight. Every glance was analyzed. Every movement was studied by millions. The audience in the Ed Sullivan Theater was packed, tension mixing with excitement. They knew this wasn't going to be a typical late-night interview filled with light-hearted banter and promotional clips. Letterman had made it clear in promotional materials that this would be substantive, that he would ask real questions, that he wouldn't treat Trump with kid gloves just because of his office. And Trump, for his part, had agreed to appear precisely because he believed he could handle anything Letterman threw at him. He had done hundreds of interviews, faced hostile journalists, debated political opponents that a retired late-night host didn't intimidate him, or so he thought. Letterman started with a light tone, his smile softening the natural tension in the air. "Mr. President," he said, his voice calm and measured, "there's been a lot of talk lately about your relationship with your daughter Ivanka." At first, it seemed like a simple, almost harmless opening, the kind of softball question that might lead to Trump talking about how proud he was of her accomplishments. The audience laughed lightly, thinking it might be a playful moment leading to family stories. Letterman had a talent for asking questions that felt easy at first, like a gentle tap on the shoulder, only to reveal something much deeper if the guest responded honestly. But Trump's response was immediate and not at all what anyone expected. His expression, usually confident and composed, tightened visibly. The practiced smile he'd worn just moments before faded into a sharper, harder line. Instead of brushing off the comment with humor or launching into a proud father anecdote, he leaned forward slightly, and his voice carried a new edge. "What do you mean? Talk about my daughter," he asked. But it wasn't really a question. It was a challenge. The warmth in the room seemed to vanish instantly. The audience, initially relaxed and ready to laugh, went quiet. The easy laughter that had filled the air just seconds ago died completely. Letterman, a man who had spent 4 decades handling strong personalities and difficult interviews, noticed the shift immediately. That he recognized defensive body language when he saw it. Trump wasn't just protecting his daughter from what he perceived as an inappropriate question. He was going on the offensive. "Well," Letterman said carefully, maintaining his calm demeanor, "you've made some comments over the years about Ivanka that many people have found unusual. Comments about her appearance, about how you'd date her if she weren't your daughter, about—" Trump cut him off sharply. "Those are jokes. Compliments. I'm proud of my daughter. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's successful. Is there something wrong with a father being proud?" His tone had shifted completely now, no longer the confident, joking Trump from the show's opening, but someone who felt cornered and was fighting back. "You've been bitter ever since your ratings dropped, David," Trump said suddenly, a sneer visible in his voice. You don't matter anymore. People don't tune in to hear what you think. You're yesterday's news. There was deliberate sharpness in his words, as if he were testing the host, daring him to respond emotionally, trying to make Letterman the subject of the conversation instead of himself. It was a classic Trump deflection tactic. When uncomfortable questions arise, attack the questioner's credibility. Letterman's smile faltered for just a moment. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, not anger exactly, but a recognition that Trump was trying to take control of the interview, to turn it into a confrontation where Letterman would have to defend himself. The audience could sense the shift. This was no longer a playful exchange between a host and his guest. This was becoming a battle of wills. People leaned forward in their seats, aware they were watching something more significant than a routine celebrity interview. This was a confrontation, subtle at first, but rising fast. But Letterman didn't panic. He had faced difficult guests before. Politicians who tried to dodge questions, celebrities who got defensive, public figures who attempted to control the narrative. But there was something distinctly different about Trump. He didn't just argue or deflect. He tried to dominate completely. He controlled the pace of conversation, choosing when to speak, deciding what to answer and what to ignore, determining how long to stay on any given topic. His presence was like a tide, pushing forward with relentless force, leaving little room for anyone else to maneuver. Most interviewers, especially on friendly entertainment shows, would back down at this point. They'd pivot to safer topics, laugh off the tension, move on to something less confrontational. But David Letterman was not most interviewers. He had retired from daily television precisely because he no longer wanted to play those games. He had returned to interviewing on his own terms, with his own show, asking questions he actually cared about without worrying about ratings or advertisers or maintaining friendly relationships with powerful people. Instead of backing down, Letterman leaned forward slightly. "Mr. President," he said, his voice still calm, but now carrying unmistakable steel. "I didn't ask you about my ratings. I asked you about your comments regarding your daughter. Would you like to address that, or would you prefer to keep attacking me personally?" The audience gasped audibly. No one spoke to Trump like that, at least not on friendly entertainment platforms. Trump's face reddened. "I'm not attacking you. I'm just stating facts. You're trying to make something innocent sound sinister because that's what people like you do." "People like me?" Letterman repeated. "You mean interviewers who ask follow-up questions?" Trump pointed at him. "People who twist words, who take jokes out of context, who pretend to be objective but really just want to make me look bad." Letterman didn't flinch. "Mr. President, I'm going to read you some of your own words. Direct quotes. And I'd like you to explain what context makes them appropriate." He pulled out a card from his desk. Trump's eyes narrowed. "In 2006, on The View, you said, and I quote, 'If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.' Do you remember saying that?" Trump waved his hand dismissively. "That was a compliment. A joke. Everyone understood that." In 2015, Letterman continued, "You were asked what you and Ivanka have in common. You said, 'I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that to her.' What did you mean by that?" Trump's jaw clenched. That's taken out of context. "Mr. President, I just read your exact words. What context makes that comment appropriate about your daughter?" The studio was completely silent now. Trump looked around, searching for support from the audience, but found only uncomfortable stares. "You're trying to make me sound like I'm inappropriate with my own daughter. That's disgusting. You should be ashamed." "I'm not making you sound like anything," Letterman said calmly. "I'm asking you to explain your own statements. Statements you made publicly, on camera, that many people found troubling." Trump stood up suddenly. "I'm not going to sit here and be interrogated by a washed-up talk show host about my family. This is exactly why people don't trust the media anymore." Letterman remained seated, his expression unchanged. "Mr. President, you agreed to this interview. You knew I would ask substantive questions. If you can't answer them, that's not my fault." Trump pointed at him again, his voice rising. "You know what your problem is, David? You think you're clever. You think you can trap me with gotcha questions. But I see right through it. They're not gotcha questions," Letterman replied, his voice still remarkably calm. "They're direct questions about your own public statements. If they make you uncomfortable, perhaps you should examine why that is." The tension was unbearable now that Trump's face was flushed, his confident demeanor completely shattered. He looked to his staff sitting off camera, clearly wanting guidance, an escape route, anything that would end this uncomfortable moment. His press secretary stood up, signaling that the interview needed to end. "We need to wrap this up," she said loudly. "The president has other commitments." But Letterman wasn't finished. "Mr. President, one more question before you go." Trump, already halfway out of his chair, paused. "The American people elected you to the highest office in the land. They deserve leaders who can answer direct questions about their own behavior. So I'll ask one final time. Do you understand why your comments about Ivanka make people uncomfortable?" Trump stared at him for a long moment. The entire room held its breath. Finally, Trump spoke, his voice tight and controlled. "I love my daughter. I'm proud of her. If people want to twist that into something ugly, that's their problem, not mine." He turned and walked off the set without another word, his team scrambling after him. Letterman sat at his desk, watching him leave, then turned to the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen, President Donald Trump," he said quietly. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or sit in stunned silence. Most chose silence. Within an hour, clips of the interview had millions of views. Social media exploded with reactions. Letterman destroyed Trump with simple questions. Trump walked out because he couldn't answer. This is why Trump avoids real interviews. News networks played the footage on loop, analyzing every moment. Political commentators called it one of the most revealing interviews of Trump's presidency. Even some conservative voices admitted it hadn't gone well. "He should have just answered the questions calmly," one Fox News analyst said. Walking out made him look defensive and guilty. Trump's attempts to control the narrative on social media only made things worse. His posts became increasingly angry, attacking Letterman personally, calling the interview a setup and fake news entertainment. But the damage was done. The interview had revealed something Trump worked hard to hide, that beneath the confident exterior, he couldn't handle direct questioning about his own behavior. This moment taught an important lesson about power and accountability. Trump had spent years dominating media interactions by controlling the pace, attacking questioners, and deflecting uncomfortable topics. Most interviewers, especially on entertainment shows, let him get away with it because they wanted to, maintain friendly relationships, or didn't want to create awkward television. But David Letterman, freed from the constraints of daily television and advertiser pressure, had no such concerns. He asked direct questions. He didn't accept deflections. He remained calm when Trump tried to bully him. And in doing so, he showed that Trump's confident dominance was really just a carefully maintained illusion that crumbled when someone refused to play along. You can't control an interview when the interviewer won't be controlled. You can't deflect questions when someone keeps asking them. And you can't maintain your image as unshakable when you walk out rather than answer simple questions. David Letterman proved that the key to interviewing powerful people isn't aggression or confrontation, that it's preparation, persistence, and the courage to ask follow-up questions when they try to dodge. Thanks for watching this complete breakdown of one of the most memorable political interviews in recent television history. If you enjoyed seeing how Letterman handled Trump's attempts to control the narrative, hit that like button, subscribe for daily political media analysis, and comment below. Should more interviewers take Letterman's approach, or was this too confrontational? We're covering every major moment in political media, so make sure you're subscribed. See you in the next video.